We still awake here tonight? All right, excellent, good. So my name is Nimrod. I'm with AT&T. I've been with network operations at AT&T since about 2001, and I've been handling peering operations for peering at AT&T for 7018 since 2005. Since about 2012 or so, I've been helping out with managing our DDoS infrastructure that we provide both for internal and for our customers. So we were sitting down with CenturyLink, and we were talking about DDoS, and DDoS is a big thing, and we get lots of DDoS traffic. And how can we coordinate some of our responses? How can we work together when there's a really big attack that's coming in to and saturating our links? How can we help each other mitigate those things? So today, most of the time, it's a phone call. Hey, Nimrod, do you know somebody over at CenturyLink? Well, Don's on vacation, so we can't really call him. That's not going to work. So we want to make these. We want to move away from these sorts of phone calls. So just to line out a little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about FlowSpec. We've talked about FlowSpec today. We've got our unwanted traffic is our DDoS traffic, and our peers are our settlement-free peers. We're kind of limiting some scope a little bit for our proof of concept. For DDoS, and our DDoS peering is our mechanism for communicating about what kind of unwanted traffic we want to drop for each other. Again, we're providing a process for our peering networks to exchange filtering requests. We're limiting the scope, at least for the proof of concept, for settlement-free peers, just because it's easier, because measuring some of these things are hard. But I think the most important point here is that we're moving away from these personal relationships to a process-driven, consistent approach that anybody in the SOC can hit that easy button and communicate to the peers. So why would you do this? Obviously, we're talking about a DDoS. I'm getting attacked, my customer's getting attacked. We've done a lot of what we can do so far. We're scrubbing, we've implemented whatever countermeasures we can implement. There's still impact. Maybe our peering links are saturated, maybe I've got some other infrastructure that's getting saturated, it's just really big. And so we need a little bit of help. And so it should be of a benefit to both of our networks, really. Presumably, when you have a relationship like this, you get together periodically, you talk about reviewing how things are going. So that gives us an opportunity, another forum where we can talk about various network hygiene recommendations. We already do BCP38, to make sure you guys do it. We've started blocking UDP port 1900 across the board. Maybe you guys want to do that too. Just to go ahead and talk about, gives us another forum to talk about some things that we can start working on. And again, I've already, this shouldn't be a first line of defense. This isn't something that we want to do. We want you to implement right away. We want you to, you should be using your own DDoS infrastructure. So kind of the process flow, what we decided on was to use FlowSpec as a communication mechanism. FlowSpec seemed a really natural choice. It's got all of the fields we want to use. It's got specifies a source, a destination. We can talk about ports and protocols. So it's kind of a little bit better than just a simple black hole request, where we can block to where we can ask the peer to block to a destination. We can get really granular. We can ask to block all UDP traffic to this particular host that maybe it's a web server that doesn't need UDP traffic. So in the diagram, the DDoS Peer 2 is under attack. There's got a customer that's under attack. We've got this out-of-band communication across the top, that flow spec speaker. And so that's where the SOC for DDoS Peer 2 can hit that easy button, can use flow spec to send those routes, to send those requests across to DDoS Peer 1, and they can take that information, and we're really only specifying that we're using flow spec as that communication. DDoS Peer 1, that network can use whatever mechanism works for them in their network to block that traffic. If they want to use flow spec to their edges, they can do that. If they want to use access lists on their ingress, if they want to push an egress access list, whatever works in their process. We didn't want to specify how each network runs their operations. And that way, again, on the sending side for DDoS Peer 2, you're leveraging whatever your infrastructure already exists. You're doing your detection. You have your tooling for your SOC, your ticketing, whatever interface you want to use. If you want to use your chatbot to send to the flow spec router, then you're certainly free to do all of those things any way you want to get that message. And then the message gets, we reply back from DDoS Peer 1 to DDoS Peer 2, say, yes, we received it and we're taking some action based on, we validated to make sure that this request makes sense. And then we send a message back that we're taking some action to block that traffic. And Don will get into some more of the details.
Hello, my name is Donald Smith. I work at CenturyLink. I'm also a volunteer incident handler at SANS. I started in computers in 1979 in the Army in a portable analog, not digital, analog computer. So I've been doing this for a long time. The requests are going to have some kind of AAA and CIA concepts in them, because this is going to change things within my network. I have to know that it was authenticated. It was authenticated in some strong fashion. If you're using a phone call, then you have a word that you use to say, I'm allowed to do this. If you're doing it via BGP, maybe use MD5. You also want to know that it was authorized. Is the person sending you this message authorized to send it to you? So if you start going beyond a single bilateral peering agreement and you want to do 2 or 3 peering agreements, you have to make sure you keep those separate, because I don't want Verizon asking me to drop AT&T traffic. And you're going to want some kind of accounting, a login system, so that later on you can say, see, here, you asked me to do that drop, and I did that drop for you. Now you can't complain to me. The other security concepts are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is going to be a little hard, but in this case it just means we wouldn't go out and do PR saying, hey, we just dropped 100 gigs of traffic for AT&T without first coordinating with AT&T. We'd work together to do something like that. I wouldn't go out in the public and say, hey, I just dropped this for this peer or that peer. Now, it is going to change routing. Trace routes might show it, other things could show it. So it's not going to be completely confidential. Anybody who knows the networks and knows how to look through networks may see that something happened. But they won't say, oh, look, that's because AT&T and CenturyLink are doing DOS peering, hopefully. And integrity, we're not going to do anything to the packet other than drop it. We're not changing it. We're not doing QoS, nothing. We're not setting any bits. The packet stays the same. We just happen to throw it on the floor. Availability, that's what this is all about. One of the problems that we have with the really big DOS attacks is if you send enough traffic through the right peering connection and my peer can no longer talk BGP with me, we drop our BGP session, it flaps. We have problems, we have issues. We pay out SLAs. I don't like paying out SLAs. I don't think Nimrod does either. So this is all about availability. It's very important. You could do these kind of filtering requests in several different fashions. A BGP route announcement, sort of an inner ISP flow spec. You could have pre-established points of contact, email, ticketing system. Our NOCs really like ticketing systems. They like to have a ticket that they can go work. That's how they prioritize things. That's how they know what's going on in the network right now. So as part of this, we're going to try to drive this into a ticketing system, out of flow spec into a ticketing system, and then the NOC gets an alert. We keep saying the standard 5 tuple plus ICMP for this, but that's not really the case. The available types are too many. We don't want to do all those. We're going to do 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Well, why didn't we do 2? Well, 2 is a source prefix, and the amount of routes, flow routes we're going to take are going to be very small, 5, 10, 20, depending on the size of your network and how many flow routes you can take from a peer. But it's not going to be enough to block any real attack. Any big attack, you can't block the thousands of bots that are coming at you. So we decided source prefix just doesn't really make any sense. Port type is kind of a wild card in flow spec. That is, it's either source or destination. So if either matches, then you drop the packet. We want to be explicit. We want to say this source port, 53, and this destination port, 444. That's a classic DNS attack we're seeing all the time. And we might map it all the way out to 53 and 444 with UDP. So we also wanted to be able to do ICMP because we do see a lot of ICMP attacks. So we've added 7 and 8, which again isn't really part of the 5 tuple. Justification, note the question mark. You should have done whatever you can in your network to eliminate this threat as much as you can. But you also want to say, here, peer, don't deliver 100 gigs of DDoS traffic to me today. Let's drop that at the edge of your network or the egress or the core, wherever you want to drop it. But let's drop it. Let's not kill our BGP sessions. You're going to have a max prefix. That's N, or we're calling it N. But all it really means is how many flow routes will you accept from your peer. And at some point, you're going to want an alert. If you get up to 9 and you're allowing 10, you may want something to go off, a red glyph on a screen or something to go, don't do another one. If you do, we're going to tear down the session. So you're going to want some kind of alert, and I don't know that we can get that yet, but that is something we're going to desire. We like redundancy. All ISPs do. So what most ISPs do for redundancy is a couple of routers or a couple of BGP speakers. But if you have 2 BGP speakers setting the same rule, how does the guy on the other end make sure he doesn't do something silly with those 2 rules and overwrite one or cause a route flap or anything like that? So you're going to want some kind of consistency built in. Initially, you might just say, I trust my peer to just send me one, and we'll do an active passive, 2 BGP sessions, but one's passive. It's not really doing anything most of the time unless I need it. So you got to have the redundancy in there. It's rather important. Our initial action we agreed to was drop packets. Rate limiting is not something we wouldn't consider, but rate limiting means you have a counter, you go out and check the counter, and then you come back and say yes or no. So it's several extra steps to do rate limiting, whereas dropping is just drop it. It's in the fib, drop it, drop it, drop it. So it's very fast, should be very easy. And that may be all we ever do. Rate limiting is interesting, but when you start talking rate limiting, you may have to go back and recertify your flow spec and see how many rate limiting flow spec rules you can do. So things like that, things to be worked on. I'm not saying it couldn't be done. We would use BGP v4 for IPv6 and IPv4 flow routes. So we'll support v6 flow routes. We're just going to use BGP v4 as the primary transport for it. We expect the other end to do a no export on anything we announce to them, because we don't want them announcing our requests yet, anyways, to their peers. So even if you had a peer and with AT&T and they had a peer with Verizon, you may not want AT&T to tell Verizon to drop traffic for you. Not yet. That could come someday. It's not impossible, but we're at the crawl phase. We're going slow and trying to make sure we get this right the first time, because BGP can affect a lot of things. You probably want to limit the length. We've discussed this. Initially, we said at least no more than a /25, because that way, even if you forgot to do the no export or somehow started to leak, it's not going to go past the next peer. The next peer is not going to take a /25 from you anyways. So it helps keep it within your own network. For an operational point of view, our ops teams really like /32. So initially, that's what we will be doing, is /32s. And honestly, when we do flow spec rules in our network, it's almost always a /32. So it makes sense to probably go with a /32. But if not, you want to at least limit it to like a /25 so it can't leak. Consistent community for this purpose. There's an RFC that was mentioned just in the last, well, 2 talks ago, 7999. It mentions that there's now a number for black hole filtering. We may want a consistent community initially just between you and your peer. You can use any community you want. You don't even have to use the same community. You can use different communities if you want. But someday that becomes a hassle if you start having 5, 10, 20 peers, managing all the different communities, which community goes to which peer. That could be kind of a pain. So we're probably going to want some consistency there eventually. May have to go to someone and get some numbers. Response from the notified network. We want to know that you're going to implement the block in some reasonable point in your network. If you decide to do that as an ACL on the egress router, that's fine. If you decide to do it at the edge of all your routers, that's fine. If you can only do it on half your routers, that still cuts the amount of traffic you were carrying towards me that was bad in half. I'm good with that. That's probably okay. We talked a little bit about network hygiene practices already, but as part of this, we're going to want some kind of acknowledgement, which you really won't get directly out of BGP flow spec. So you may have an IM session or a telecon or some way to communicate and say, we got your request, we did something, and now we're ready to tear it back down. You ask your peer, are you still seeing that traffic, or has that traffic dropped down to 1/10 or 100th of what it was and we don't care anymore? So you're going to want some kind of a feedback loop, some way for your SOCs or NOCs to communicate outside probably of BGP flow spec, because it doesn't really have those concepts built into it. As I said earlier, when you get to the max prefix and you add one to it, the BGP session is going to tear down. You're going to lose all of your rules. So you want some way to, the requester must later on withdraw or cancel the request for those flow spec rules. This should be limited to significant events. This isn't, I'm seeing a 10 meg DOS. This is hundreds of gigs. Oh, mine's yours?
You're a little bit there, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I keep going.
I'm John Scheel, work for CenturyLink. I'm not used to using mics. I talk very loud, so if I talk too loud in this mic, let me know. Just raise your hand and I'll back off a little bit. But I'm a principal architect for CenturyLink. I've been doing network security and primary DDoS architect for about the last 8 years or so. I did a lot of stuff in my career, from programming to system administration. I think the only thing I haven't done so far is be a network admin. So that's a skill you guys can have to yourselves. I like to dabble on the outsides of that myself. Consider myself a jack of all trades and a master of almost some. As Don pointed out, the requests are withdrawn by or canceled by the requesting peer. The idea is for the announcing peer to have control. So if we tell AT&T and drop this traffic on this flow spec rule, then we should be allowed to just pull that without AT&T having any concern or worry about that. We try to have it limited to significant events. You don't want to turn it on every time you see a UDP 1900 coming across your peering link. I mean, that's common enough. I think most of us have some sort of ACL or rate limit on there already to drop, some of that common type of traffic. The peer has no obligation and may terminate the action at any time at their discretion. And if you do that, you may have your reasons when that announcement comes across to get that dropped. I think it'd be nice if, if we do drop that we call up AT&T and notify them why we dropped it, just as a courtesy call. And then on that announcement, both networks or providers must assess the collateral impacts of that announcement. So if you see something coming across and it's going to adversely affect your network, you don't really have to accept that announcement. And as we said before, it's implemented with peers on a bilateral basis. Green button. Okay. The benefits. So we're doing this right now between AT&T and CenturyLink, and it expands the ISP's ability to withstand large DDoS attacks. So if we get another a Mirai type attack and it's just filling that 40 gig or whatever size link between CenturyLink and AT&T, we can give them a call and say, hey, just don't send traffic down that pipe for us, please. And it makes our DDoS response more efficient. It's an institutional, not a personal relationship. So as Nimrod alluded to earlier, if he needs to make a rule get in place, he doesn't have to call Don because this is already set up. It's pre-established, it's authenticated trust relationship. We want to make sure that you know, the AT&T, the AAA is there, it's done ahead of time. It's a pre-negotiated, predefined process. It's documented requests and specific data elements, so you're not running around at the last minute trying to figure out how this should work, what you should put in, who do you talk to on your side, who do you talk to on the other side, and it makes it much easier. And the additional benefit of this is not carrying unwanted traffic, and it kind of, you know, makes sense, but what you don't realize is if we don't have to carry that traffic, I don't have to put together another 40 gig or 100 gig or whatever sized link between us and AT&T. I can take that traffic and have it dropped on the other side, and then that pipe is a 40 gig pipe, and it, you know, may be 50% utilized. I can use that other 50% and get that, you know, sell that traffic to a customer and make money on that instead of spending money to expand that mitigation capability. So this does have some issues and concerns. So you need to make sure, if you're participating in this, that you get your legal, public policy, and regulatory people involved in this as well, because they're going to have some questions and concerns to make sure that you know, no one gets sued at the wrong time. If you make sure you make the announcement, you got to make sure that you actually have that announcement, that you're allowed to make that announcement. There's confidentiality concerns. By sharing that flow spec rule, you're pretty much telling the other side, you know, which one of your customers is getting attacked. And it also identifies what portions of your network might be a little bit vulnerable. So trust needs to be developed between yourself and the other peer to make sure that you're alleviating this concern and you're not going to be trying to steal each other's customers. We provide DDoS service, AT&T does, you know, there's others in the audience that do as well. It's a service that makes us money. So, you know, we're not going to try and give it away for free, but we need to protect our network as best we can. And a lack of reporting is something that we're still having issues with. The way that this is reported today is with interface index 0 on the router. And that same value is recorded for an ACL, for a rate limit, for flow spec. So it's really hard to differentiate between what is dropped by what rule. And we need that reporting so that we can, in this bilateral agreement, if we agree that it's a 100 gig drop, that we're dropping 100 gig and then AT&T is also dropping 100 gig. And you know, the idea right now, it's a settlement-free peer, so we can't try and immediately do a money grab and ask for the peer to pay, because then no one will actually participate. And so we need help from you guys to try and work with the vendors and maybe the IETF community to see if we can't get a better reporting on these flow spec rules. And then I think we found a link to an old comrade of ours developed a Perl script that he was able to get some statistics off of the flow spec rules with the Perl script, and that was from, I think, 2009. So there's other further investigation that we can do to figure out if there's another way to do the reporting without having to use interface index 0. And then lastly, the references we had for this discussion are listed here. One thing we didn't add yet is we had developed a list of questions and answers that we had come up with between ourselves and AT&T to try and figure out how we can implement this. And we're going to try and put that together as an RFC, an informational RFC, and hopefully be able to add that to these links and the reference material at a future date. So that's about it. You have questions?
Hi there, Matt Petak, Yahoo. Just one clarification. Are you doing this at the request of the downstream customer saying, hey, I'm under attack, different upstreams, please filter this? Or is this the two of you getting together and saying, we're going to filter this? The customer hasn't actually asked us to filter this, but we're taking somewhat, well, unilateral action on behalf of the customer to say, we're going to block that even if they haven't asked us to block it.
Some of the former, but mostly the latter. So it's trying to keep the peering links up between ourselves, non-saturated, so that we can carry normal traffic.
So if the customer actually doesn't want the traffic filtered, you're just kind of arbitrarily saying, you know what, we think this is bad traffic. We're just going to decide between the little cabal of us that we want to drop it.
It sounds bad when you say it that way, but we also have to, we also, from our perspective, we have to protect our own network. And if that customer down there doesn't want us to block that traffic, well, that one customer is just amongst the thousands of customers we have. So in order to keep that peering link up and being able to transfer traffic for all of our customers, we have the right to clean some of that traffic off that's affecting a small percentage.
Would you notify the customer that, hey, instead of trying to troubleshoot why this traffic disappeared, we've taken action to block it, so sorry?
So mostly, I think what we're looking at would be if we're protecting a DDoS against our own infrastructure or one of our DDoS customers that we've clearly identified an existing attack, that we need additional assistance, clearing up some of that in order to preserve the functionality of the network.
I would respectfully recommend that you notify the end network who is the ultimate one being filtered.
If it's, yeah, that's definitely something we would look at doing it, particularly if it's not something that's already part of an ongoing attack. If they was part of an ongoing attack for a DDoS customer, they would of course already be engaged. And yeah, so that's definitely some good feedback. We'll look at if it's not part of something like that.
Yeah, but we already do black hole filtering today. If a customer comes under a big enough attack, I'm sorry, I'm going to throw your IP on the floor and toss all your traffic off at the edge of my network. I'm doing that already. Now you're still up. You're still working. If you're a web server, this probably doesn't affect you at all. I just killed all the NTP traffic that was coming your way. So it's a benefit to the customer. And we would probably, like you said, mostly do DOS customers first or our own infrastructure. But at some point I could see like a Krebs attack. That was GRE. If five large ISPs had said, we're going to drop all the GRE towards Krebs, that attack would have gone away. Now, is Krebs a customer of mine? No.
And if he was trying to figure out why GRE was going away, it would be good for him to know. But all right, thank you.
Understood.
The stage right microphone.
Joel Yeagley, Fastly. An observation that I think you alluded to several times that I essentially have some questions about, which is sort of the infrequency of use. I maintain the tooling necessary to signal to my providers that I would like them to drop a particular prefix. On the other hand, I can almost never use that because as a CDN, like all of those IPs actually get valid traffic. And also because I have a lot of capacity, the extent to which I would have to be under duress in order to use that is infrequent. So like the only reason I know that I have the capability to do this and that it works is because I exercise it routinely, but in 4 years I've never used it. So I have some questions with respect to very large networks as to whether or not like this kind of signaling is actually useful. It certainly seems like it's useful if you have an end user because you know, someone's cable modem doesn't have a prayer of doing anything with 20 gigs of traffic, right? So you know, for the sake of your edge, clearly you filter that. But on the other hand, with respect to large networks, the extent to which this is signaling is actually useful to them, like particularly in my case, I could be a customer of yours, seems quite limited.
Yeah, I can see that. It's just that with you saw I think today there were some attacks that, there was a chart that was a 600, 800 gig attack. OVH reportedly said they were under a terabit attack. I don't know if anyone's, other than them, have actually verified that yet, but.
I mean, the only way they can measure that, of course, is if they actually receive the traffic. So, I mean, in order to be under a terabit attack and know it, you either have to have that telemetry from your providers or you have to have counted the bits yourself.
Right, and that's, like Nimrod said with the alerting. Go ahead.
And you know, different customers, I think, have different traffic profiles. So as a CDN, you're probably much more outbound, and so you have a lot of space to absorb an inbound attack. And so I think we're not necessarily looking at just that edge. We're looking at the overall health of the network, and when we might need to execute something like this. If it could be my scrubbing capacity, it could be a core link, it could be our peering interconnect. The point is that I might be struggling to absorb and defend a particular attack, and so I'm looking. I can look at my flow data. I can see where it's coming from, and I can reach out to that peer and say, I'm dropping this traffic anyway. Could you help me out and not send it to me in the first place?
And as you pointed out, this has to be exercised. So we have plans to paper exercise, on the phone exercise, then eventually actually do it and drop some traffic and see if it all worked right. So there'll be more than one exercise on this. We might even get it wrong once. We'll try not to, but we might.
Yeah, you have to actually do it a lot to know that your knock is actually not wobbly about it. So yeah, I mean, I look forward to, you know, being involved in exercises like that.
Go, thanks.
Thank you.
Go here.
My name is Andrew Sullivan. I work for, but don't speak for, Oracle Dyn. I like what you're doing here because, of course, the traditional way on the internet was, well, I know a guy I had a beer with one time, and that's how we're going to solve this. So I like the formalism of this. But I wonder if you've worried at all about the potential attractive nuisance here, right? Because there are legal regimes in the world who would love to have this kind of formal relationship where they can go in and lean on somebody and say, well, shut all of that down. So it seems to me that this has the potential to be abused by some people that way, and I just wonder what, you know, in a way that personal relationships were hard to do. So I wonder if that's something you've thought about or whether you think it's just a non-problem.
Yeah, it is. I think it's something that the main focus originally was being able to share those flow spec rules because we do have to protect the health of our network because we're in the business of providing data to our customers. So we're very careful about trying to make sure we don't have abuse and avoiding it as much as possible. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, you're right. There is a threat that somebody could come down with a legal ruling and say, CenturyLink, you must use this, and you must tell AT&T to do the same thing. If that happened, we have to deal with that then. I don't see that happening today. We're not being told that today. The U.S. government especially would like this kind of capability to tell all of the large U.S. ISPs, hey, drop this traffic. And if we had legal bearing to do it, we might do it. Now, would we use it for censorship? Probably not in most cases. And I don't see it being abused that way. But if there was another Krebs attack and someone gave me legal authority to drop GRE towards them, rather than carry 40 gigs of a DOS attack, why don't I drop it? And there, I got 40 gigs left on my pipe. It saves my pipes.
Okay.
Krasmir Cvetanov, fastly. Actually, in terms of censorship, it's much easier to filter the outbound request versus the incoming traffic. So I just wanted to answer that. In this case, you are offering something that unsolicited to filter unsolicited traffic. So anyway.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Nope. All right. Thank you.